Thank you for
I'll
all the
put it.
work, Cindy.
Yeah. Welcome in, everybody. Hi, how you doing? It's Monday, 2:30 p.m. Central. I'm here with Tom Nash, one of the biggest YouTubers in YouTube finance, and he's somebody I've been following for a really long time. I'm a friend of the show. You've been on, I think this might be your third time or fourth time. I can't recall, but
Yeah.
always
You've been
appreciative
on
of
my channel multiple times.
yeah, man. It's been a cool thing that's blossoming here, sort of partnership and friendship and all this good stuff. And yeah, man, I'm just very appreciative of you making the time and coming on and speaking with me, brother.
I
Really
love what
appreciate
you're
you.
doing. You're creating such a beautiful community.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's I'm blessed. I'm very lucky to have the community that I do, and I definitely I try
I'm
to
gonna
spend
be honest with you. I'm
yeah.
envious of how
Why?
of how clean your community is. It's when always it's so wholesome. All the comments,
It's
except the bots, of course.
of course. Yeah, man. It's I think one of the things I've really focused on is trying to be as like positive as possible, but like not be fake positive, just like truly inwardly be positive
Yeah,
in the hopes that it I feel like it attracts that sort of energy when you're like that. And
yeah,
I just,
definitely.
happen to be in the Tesla sort of space, and I'm just that's my guiding principle. Just be yourself. I'm a positive dude. I'm optimistic by nature, and not being afraid to be vulnerable in front of a camera, regardless of who's on with me or what topic I'm talking about. Thank you so much, Zachary. That's just super kind of you. Even in the sort of battle of bots and spammers, and not the bigger I'm getting, it's getting a little bit weird with like folks that are "Meh, you suck," and I'm like, okay,
I
great.
don't mind that. That I don't mind. I can live with hate comments. What I
Yeah,
cannot deal with is getting bombarded with like 300 bots.
that
Uh,
sucks so bad.
AMC 304 AA,
Yeah.
XOL 55ZZ, like all this, and they'll spam you with like with 150 of those. I spend like hours cleaning it up, and
Yeah,
like,
dude.
and I think to myself, how is Google is not in a place where they give enough Fs to clean this shit up? Because I mean, how is this still a thing? It's so
Yeah.
easy to catch.
Yeah. Like there's specific keywords, right? I mean, they repeat every time.
Yeah.
WhatsApp, AMZ 59, whatever the hell that number is.
No,
It's
no, they
like
changed the
literally
numbers. They changed the
okay.
numbers. They've gotten more sophisticated, but like there's definitely patterns there. I just
Yeah.
feel like they polluting the experience. When people come into my video, I feel they come into my store. And part of the experience is just interacting with the comment section. And when they drop like literally today, bro, like 400 comments,
It's insane.
three different bot like masters. I don't know what they are. I call them
Yeah.
douchebags. And all of a sudden, like, so the comment section is not accessible anymore to my audience because it's just fucking polluted. So I'm sitting there and cleaning this up like manually one by one. And I was just texting about it today, or like tweeting about it today. It's like, how is this not being addressed by YouTube for
I couldn't agree
three
more.
years already?
I
Like,
couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's even more shocking too because I don't know if this holds true for you as well, but on Twitter, ever since Elon sort of took it over,
way
there's still
cleaner,
bots. It's
way cleaner.
so much cleaner, right? You've
Yeah.
noticed that too?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not the only
One,
one.
maybe two per post. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. And
Nothing.
so like
Yeah.
that like gives me a lot of hope that I think once Twitter decides to start going down the video path and becomes
Yeah.
a YouTube competitor, it'll be the first time YouTube actually has a competitor in this realm that has a one up, which is the community building aspect, because it's like every single video. I've started to get emails from folks saying, "Hey, you asked me to reach out to you on WhatsApp, but I don't have WhatsApp." I'm like, dude, that definitely that's a scammer like that. And then that's in my head, I'm like, holy crap. So I don't want people to get scammed or
You know what they're
spammed,
taking
you
advantage
know?
of is because like
What?
it's how obvious it's a scam, but
Yeah.
it's an emotional thing. It's like if somebody's your fan, they really want to interact with you. And
Exactly.
when they see this, oh, text me, they're not thinking like logically and trying to analyze if this is a scam or not. They're so excited about it, so they'll jump on it. And I had a guy reach out to me and he said that they scammed him out of like 20, $30,000 a couple of years
Ouch.
ago.
That's insane.
Um, but it was a happy ending because he told me that he went into Tesla in 2020 and
Okay.
he's retired and they got in and they bought a house and they like super
Fantastic.
comfortable. So
Awesome.
He's like, I want to send you the 20,000 that they scammed off of me. I said, no, no. I was like, no,
Yeah,
no,
man.
no need.
It's just such a dark, weird thing, and it's a part of like the bigger the channel gets, the more I'm like my eyes open up to sort of how just how weird this thing is that that we
Oh
do,
yeah,
which is this YouTube thing. There's a lot of psychology, but there's also like just pure just people
a
looking
lot
to
of
do.
psychosis also.
Yeah, it's so true, It's
Yeah,
it's
man.
wild, and it's navigating through that has been a very eye-opening experience, and that's why when you open by saying that, you're, and quote unquote envious, I mean, your community is also phenomenal, dude. Like it's top
No,
tier,
but
and
yours is
you
like
know,
when I read the comments, it feels so clean. It's like I was like, if I was restarting and I was building from scratch today, this
mhm.
is the blueprint I would use. What you're doing is
Thanks so
basically
much,
like
man.
just just cultivate the community at all costs, and everything else will follow. I absolutely love this kind of mentality
I
because I think
appreciate
it's
that,
a
brother.
win-win for everybody. Because like you're making money, you're creating a business, you're providing value. They're getting like a community where they can feel like a part of something bigger than them, and actually, um, it's just this perfect symbiosis that just absolutely blows my mind. um, it's beautiful. And also like, look, we're both big fans of what Tesla is doing.
Yeah,
That specific community has way more positivity than any other kind of stock ecosystem out there.
I
Whenever I
agree.
make a Tesla video, I can feel like the positivity in the comments,
Yeah, yeah.
unlike any other stock I talk about.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear say that, because that's been sort of my experience being in, part of this community, and it's like, and that was like, and I was inspired by the Tesla story, as to take
Yeah,
this sort of direction. Is like, a lot of my inspirations that I've taken for this channel are based on my time at Tesla and following that company specifically. And it's like, be passionate about what you do. Don't be afraid to innovate, change stuff up constantly.
yep,
Try to be unemotional in all your actions. Seek the truth, and always put your customer first. And in this case, my customer is not really a customer; it's a community. It's the people that get together to share ideas and really explore these topics together. And I can very confidently say that me working at Tesla, me following Tesla, following how Elon builds businesses and really thinks about those things, directly has inspired
for
how I
sure.
approach YouTube. And it's
He
I
changed
think it's
management, bro. He changed
he did.
management forever.
I agree. I
Like
agree.
we've seen this happen when so I'm 42 years old. So I saw what the previous management style looked like. The big scary boss, the hierarchy, top management, middle management, drones, the fear. The motivation is fear. The motivation is basically belittling people, etc.
Yeah.
So I saw that version when I was just starting out, um, and I saw it like venture from that into, okay, so let's try to motivate employees instead of having them being afraid, and let's try to be inclusive instead of like the big disc, and the big boss in the corner office. But like Elon took it to a whole new level. Like I've never seen anything like this. Like he brought down the walls. It's
Yeah.
like it's I don't think anybody before Tesla have seen such a I don't know if it's a flat managerial structure, but it's as close as I've ever seen one.
It is. And it's, where it stems from. The single word that it stems from is trust. So like the way my experience was, it's they default to trust, because the way they're thinking about is, okay, we've done our due diligence to hire the people that we think are going to fit into the culture as well as possible.
Yeah,
Everybody in this company, you have no option but to trust each other. And if you act in a way that is in an antithesis to that, that it's opposite to that, you are gone. Like and they're very,
there's no
very
compromise. Yeah, there's no
no
compromise.
compromise, because they
Yeah,
know that is truly what's most important about building that
yeah,
culture. And then when I think about, okay, so why is Tesla so successful? Like, it's because they not only have hired the best, but they've given them the keys to the business. And if I think that within the context of not just every other company that I've heard about, but some of the companies I've been to in the past, and I've been extremely fortunate in my career
Yeah.
to be paired up with really good companies. But the story that I hear most commonly from everybody is like, dude, I hate my job because I feel like I'm like shackled, or like it's an
Yep.
ego trip, it's like a freaking ego war zone with a bunch of people trying to, career build on the way up. And it's like, what are we working towards? Like to make the company more money or to actually work towards something more important?
No,
So
but
it's like,
this is corporate America in a nutshell. Still
it's
today,
crazy.
way more politics than productivity in
It's
any
crazy.
business environment. Way more.
Yeah.
It's like I think it starts from the top. Elon basically, I think, transmits this a notion that I won't have any of it. So if you have a good idea and you can execute, you're gonna get rewarded. If you're just playing hooky and is just you're faking it, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna hunt you down like a dog,
Yeah.
and you're gonna be out.
Yeah.
And it's like, and
Yeah.
basically, like it's the perfect carrot and stick. And basically, it's like I don't want none of this other shenanigans. Like, I think what's one of the beautiful things about Tesla is the flow of information. Usually, like in a big company, the CEO doesn't know what's really going on because it's being constantly fed what he wants to hear by middle management because they're so afraid of the top
Right.
management.
We don't want to
So,
get fired.
like Elon's ability to know exactly what's going on the assembly line in any given facility, at an R&D department, like it's just the flow of information is something that doesn't get enough discussion in Tesla. It's like it's one of the biggest Achilles heel of a big company. You get bigger, and then there's layers, and then information flows and gets polluted until it gets to the
Yeah.
top. It doesn't happen in Tesla.
Yeah. It's like, what's that one game where you put like 10 people in a line and then somebody whispers into the ear of the other person, like, my
Broken
car is
telephone.
blue. Yeah,
We
exactly.
we call it broken telephone in Russian. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's called in America.
Probably the same. We'll go with the
Yeah,
Russian definition.
yeah.
It's that's how most so let me ask you this. Do you think that style of business is applicable to most corporations, or do you think it's limited to very few companies? How do you think about that?
You need a super strong, confident, talented, like professional at the top, not like somebody who's like a manager. It's like the strength of Elon is he actually understands the business. Like he gets it. Like you remember when Ford had, I don't want to disrespect, but the previous CEO, he ran a carpenting, like a furniture company before that. I forgot his
I
name.
Yeah.
Super
I know
nice
exactly what
guy,
you're talking about. Yeah.
but
He's on
like
CNBC often.
yeah, I like this guy a lot. But
Yeah.
like
Good guy.
furniture company, auto manufacturer. I mean, he's probably a great CEO, but I mean, how much does he know about building cars? So the idea is like it can work if the CEO, and I love founder CEOs. It's my favorite thing I don't like professional CEOs that much. I will tolerate one. Like for example, I would tolerate Herbert Dees if he
Hmm.
comes along because I was like, okay, he gets it. But like I would like preferably 9 out of 10 cases, founder CEO is where like I think the value is at. So confident, fearless, assertive, doesn't afraid to get in people's faces, but also okay, he gets the business. He knows every nut and bolt. He knows the R&D process. Like he knows
He
everything.
works. They work. Yeah.
Yeah, and also uh, like the idea. You know how back in the 80s, John DeLorean, when he quit GM, he tried to build his own car company,
Yep.
and it
Yep.
was all about like it was a very charismatic guy, but all about like the lifestyle and like the cars and the women and like the good life. I mean, the fact of the matter is like if you're an employee looking at Elon, he's a work all day, and then he goes to his tiny house, and then
Yeah.
he's at work all day, and then he goes to his tiny house. It's like
Yeah.
as an employee, you feel bad if you're not giving the same 100%.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
he's not out there on like he goes to premieres and shit. So like he'll host the
Yeah.
occasional SNL, but it's not his thing, bro. Like
Yeah. And he's still on his phone, probably working in between breaks,
yeah.
right? Like it's not like always. And that's the thing. It's like that was one
Have you
thing
seen
that
how
really
he looked on that yacht when he was like super
Yeah. He
like
looked great.
that's how my CEO should look like. Completely no tan, out of shape, all focused in work.
Pale,
Yeah,
sickly, unhealthy. Oh my god. I mean, there's definitely something. I saw a stand up by Andrew Schultz. You ever heard of that
of
comedian?
course, obviously.
He's
Yeah.
so good. He's
Yeah.
like he said something very similar to what you said because they had the poor, picture of poor Elon on the yacht,
What
pale
did
as
they
a
make fun
ghost.
of him?
And they're like, that's when I started investing in Tesla, because I'm like, oh, that's the CEO of Tesla. I'm throwing my money in there because
You know, they say the
that
same
dude's
thing about
working.
NBA players. They're like, you remember how, I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, the Lakers drafted a guy by the name of Brandon Ingram.
It sounds
And
familiar.
he was supposed to be like the super talented guy, very tall, but can dribble, can shoot, can dunk, like a cheat code, like a video game character. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Never really panned out. And then he moved to another team, and a couple of years later, all of a sudden he comes out of preseason. The hair is all fricked up, like the beard is all over the place. He looks like a hobo. And then like people is like, yes, now he's like
He's
all in
working.
basketball. He's all in like, and he had an amazing season with the
That's
Pelicans, I
amazing.
think. Amazing season. Like people are like, yes. Like that's the
Yeah.
guy who doesn't care about the Gucci bags and the dreads and like
Yeah.
it,
Distractions, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, distraction from greatness. Yeah, dude, it's been a fascinating story to follow. I know, obviously what we've been talking Tesla here for a little bit, but I think one of the takes I want to get from you is, Tesla has lowered their prices recently, and it's one of those things where you've been
Misunderstood.
following this story for a long time. What's up?
It's misunderstood by most analysts.
Misunderstood. So help me walk me through your thought process.
The only actually today was the first time, and I gave them a shout out in my video. There
Yeah.
was an analyst that actually caught it correctly. I don't remember. I already forgot because I don't really care about analysts that much. But I think it was Berenberg came out and they said blah 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 price target blah 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 buy rating. Don't give a fuck. Sorry, don't give a shit.
You
I
can
don't
curse.
care.
We're past the first 30 seconds. We're fine.
Yeah. So I don't care about your rating. I don't care. But then I want to see the logic. And then in the logic part, this is what it caught my eye, and I gave them credit because they were saying we think that the price cuts are not a reactionary move to deal with demand issues. It's a strategic, assertive, assertive move by Tesla to suffocate competition and increase volumes, and basically saying this is happening on Tesla's terms. This is a strategic move. This is not a reactionary move. And I was like, oh, they got it. It's the
Yeah.
first time I heard somebody actually get it in this analyst community. Mostly they're idiots. There's a few who get it. I like Dan Ives a lot. He gets it most of the time. But most of these guys, they're clueless. They're just chasing the trend. Whatever the crowd thinks, they'll just
Yeah.
mirror it to the crowd.
Yeah.
It's very very low value.
Yeah, and it's especially interesting too because when they announced it, to me it seemed like, going along those lines, like Tesla's they're not a niche boutique automaker anymore. They're gonna make close to 2 million cars this year, so they're gonna be in like the
Yeah,
top 5 to 7 auto manufacturers in the world
yeah.
from a volume perspective.
Almost as big as Lucid.
Yeah, almost. Listen,
One day they're gonna be as
one
good as
day
one day as
they'll
good as
match
Lucid.
those awesome,
Yeah.
folks. I honestly, the car looks. I don't know if have you seen it in person? Have you seen the Lucid in person?
The Lucid, it's a good car.
It's a good looking car,
Can
man.
they make
It's a
like
good
more than
looking car.
500 of these
Doesn't
cars?
seem like it. Doesn't
It's
seem
a
like
good
it.
car, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's 100 grand. They can't make
Yeah.
enough of them,
Yeah.
and I don't know how good the software is. To be honest, I don't know, and I
Yeah.
don't know anybody except Meet Kevin. I think who bought one that owns one. I mean,
Okay.
they're really scarce. I know people have seen few, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell they're doing. I mean,
Yeah. I'm hoping they're probably going to be a niche like boutique automaker long term, like a Maserati type thing in the long term,
that's
especially with
fine.
Saudi back money, which is fine.
It
They
just
have a
means you're
room.
gonna get bought out by a bigger player at some point. Like all the
Exactly.
niche players, all these luxury brands, they all get bought out at some
Right.
point.
They
Like
become a
who,
subsidiary of a bigger
like
one.
who owns
Yeah.
Bugatti, VW, right?
Yeah.
Who owns? Uh, I don't remember. Like all of,
Audi, Porsche.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're all owned. By the way, I saw a beautiful documentary about Ferdinand Porsche and like how the whole brand started. It's actually very
Okay.
interesting.
On
But
Netflix?
um, I'm gonna shock you on YouTube by a
Whoa,
guy with
okay.
like 20,000 subscribers. And I was watching it. It's like, this is better than anything I've seen on Netflix. And this is a guy in his room with Adobe Premiere. He's on his own that
Wow.
created this. I was like,
Amazing.
mind blown how talented people are right now.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's the way the internet is like everybody can sort of really exercise their imagination. But on the mass automaker front, with
Yeah.
Tesla reaching 2 million units, now that they've sort of started lowering the price, and producer wife, if you can pull up the article I just shared with you
Shout out to
there.
producer wife, all the great
Shout
work.
out producer wife. Hell yeah, she's
She's
the
the heart
best.
of the show.
She is. She's the heart and
Yeah.
the brains. And the brains. She's everything. She's great.
I cannot
And
argue with this for your sake.
yes, yeah. Thank you. Just let's just make sure that's the case.
Exactly.
Just kidding around. But the car and driver article, producer, if you can bring it up, Ford in quote unquote retaliation, but I think out of necessity, they also just announced lower prices today on their
On the
Ford
Mach-E.
Mach-E.
Yeah.
Yeah, between $400 to $5,700. So real quick, I'll read this for folks that are just on headphones. 2023 Ford Mustang Mach-E base prices dropped between $400 and $5,700 from car and driver. This was published earlier today. Ford also said this year it plans to increase Mach-E production by 60% to 130,000 units. To put that in context, the Model Y is probably going to get close to or slightly above 1 million units this year. And
Yeah.
the Mach-E was released about 6 months after the Model Y. And so around the same time they were launched, and
Yeah.
Tesla Model Y is roughly 10x the units
Yeah.
after 3 years, which it's food for thought. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying food for thought is interesting there.
It's a fake car.
It's a what?
It's a fake car.
You think it's a fake car?
It's not a real profit center for Ford.
Oh, for sure not. They're not making money on it.
It,
And
they-
they
it's
came
just
out and
there to
said
show
that.
that they can, like,
Yeah.
look, I'll prove you it's a fake car. If you can leave the article on the screen, I'm going to prove it to you. So look,
Sure.
this decision makes no business sense. If this was actually a profit center for Ford, this would be unacceptable. I'll tell you why. So businesses like business better than I think most people. And I've never owned a business, but I work for a company. I work for Deloitte, and what we did is we basically perform due diligence to businesses. So I've analyzed a lot of businesses in my life.
Mhm.
So the one thing that auto companies always have traditionally struggled with is margin. It's very hard to continuously generate sustainable margins when you're building physical stuff, especially as elaborate and complex as automobiles or planes, whatever. It's a very tough industry. So
Okay.
Ford is operating in an environment with about, I don't know what, 8%, 9% gross margin. I don't remember. Single digits gross margin.
Sounds right.
If I'm not, um, Tesla's operating in what, 23, 24% gross margin. So
Yep.
Tesla's coming out from the Olympus from the 24% gross margin, and they're basically saying, okay, we're going to bite into it a little bit to increase volume. Cool. Where is this discount coming out of? If you're already at 8% or 9% gross margin, this discount basically creates this. Unless you're going to tell me this is a loss leader for Ford, which there's no such thing as a loss leader in the auto industry. It's not like if if you sell somebody a Mach E, they're going to buy an F-150. There's no loss leading in auto, right? So this is a losing vehicle. Like if they're
Yeah.
dropping price on something that's already at 8% gross margin, there's no meat on the bone for this car to make money, unless all this is a publicity stunt for the shareholders to kind of make it seem as if Farley and team are actually getting progress in EVs. The truth is that Ford is so far behind because of years of neglect and years of misunderstanding the industry, years of misallocating resources, not creating infrastructure for EV at all. They're so far behind that this is just a Hail Mary. And I like the car itself. It's not horrible. It's just how are they going to make money off of it? How are they going to make enough of it at this price
Right.
level? It's a losing business. It's like it's not
Yeah.
sustainable. It's just an
Yeah.
ad.
It's to me it's if they don't do this, it tarnishes their brand of electrification, right? Because
Yeah.
I if you pull up producer wife the Ford.com link that I sent you with the actual specs and the pricing for the Mach-E, and then on the side if you can also do the Model Y as well. Just to have it prepped. So this is what the new pricing is for the Ford model. So this is the Select
46.
starts at
Yes.
46,
46.
Premium starts at 51. The
But I
California
think
Route
the
1,
apples to apples is the premium, right? Because Tesla doesn't make. You told me Tesla
not
doesn't make
even.
the. Yeah.
Yeah, not even the premium. It would have to be the I think probably the California Route 1 or the
Got it.
premium with an extended oh, okay, so the extended battery optional on the premium. So if you click on the premium, producer wife, on the order and then add the extended battery for me, if you don't mind. Thank you very
It's gonna
much. So how much
be
does the extended at 7,000? So boom, it's already over
60
55.
grand. Yeah, 60
Yeah.
grand.
And so this car now with extended battery pack is going to be 57,000, which is above the
above the
threshold
EV.
limit
Yeah,
for EV tax credit. So it's 57 out the door, call it 58, with a comparable range, real wheel drive. It's not even all wheel drive, right? So
yeah.
if you add all wheel drive, if you can do that, producer wife, see if you can find out how to do that. You
Do they
might
have driver assist systems that are any good,
they
or it's
have
just
this thing
basic
called
like lane assist and
mm,
adaptive
yeah,
cruise
it's
control?
it's Blue Cruise or Blue's Clues or something. So Consumer Reports rated it the best.
Sorry,
the
when you said Consumer Reports, I had a gag
yeah,
reflex.
yeah. They rated it the best system out there. But did you
Sure,
know that the biggest donor for Consumer
I
Reports is one of
know.
the heads of Ford or
Yeah.
something? Yeah,
Not only that, they
coincidences.
have GM
Yeah,
links also.
yeah, for sure.
Did you see
Um,
the I think if you go through the executive list, there's a lot of very interesting connections there.
yeah, a lot of the
And
legacy auto folks.
a lot of legacy auto folks. I believe I don't want to. I'm not sure, so I don't want to say it. But there's definitely historical GM ties as well as Ford ties there.
Hmm. Yeah, not surprised. Not surprised to
Not
hear that at
surprised.
all.
No, nobody takes
Um,
Consumer Reports seriously though.
Not anymore. I used to
No,
back in the day when they seemed more impartial, but nowadays they're not. If you go back, producer wife, I think we may have to spec
it's a nice
the
looking car.
premium one.
It's a nice looking car.
It looks good in person, man, and I'm
Yeah,
sure it drives great, and the people that own it love it because EVs are just better than gas cars, right? It's
yeah.
like, that's just what it is. So go
I mean, I'd
build your
rather somebody
own.
buy that instead of a gas vehicle in
Yeah,
general.
exactly. But they can only
So
make 130,000 a year. That's the problem. Yeah, California. Oh, there's all-wheel drive optional as well.
the big
Um,
problem, like for me, is like even before you get into the price war, it's like
yeah,
let's say you buy this, so you're at what Electrify America, that's your charging solution.
exactly.
Oh my God, like this is your life now. It's like
I know.
it's a very tall order to say that this is comparable to the supercharger network, at
And
least in
this
North
is the
America.
best for sure. And this is the best, I would argue, the best equipped legacy automaker right now. That is the closest thing to a competitor to Tesla. Like the one that's absolutely tried the hardest, I would say, and is actually trying to make something happen. And this is an example of a legacy automaker going as hard as they can to
Yeah,
try and catch up to Tesla. They're 1/10 the production, and if you take the California Route One, which is the extended battery range and an all-wheel drive, starts at
yeah.
58. It's $12,000 more expensive net to the customer than
For
the
an
Tesla
inferior
Model Y
product.
long range for an inferior product and no
Yeah.
supercharger network and no ADAS. So I mean, this to me, I mean, this right here in a nutshell, I believe, and I might be,
Do
Tesla
they have their
goal.
own battery tech? I mean, you understand about these things more than me. Ford have
It's
their own
third
battery?
party. I
Okay.
forget who supplies their battery, but they're not vertically integrated. None of these
'Cause
legacy
I
automakers are.
heard GM have their own battery, but I don't know how good it is. But
But
Ford
they're
does.
going to 4680s. They're
Okay.
transitioning out of it. Yeah. So they were doing the Ultium. They called it the Ultium battery technology, but a news report came out yesterday. I don't know if you can find it. Producer wife from GM Ultium 4680, something along those lines.
Okay.
They're going to be switching over or starting production of a new cell that's going to be modeled after the 4680 because the
Okay.
Ultium technology is way too complex and it's not nearly as good from an energy density perspective as
Oh, look, the
the
leader of the EV industry.
oh yeah, the leader, Mary led. Everybody in the comments
Nicola.
section, yeah.
Nicola.
uh,
Good call, Mary. Nicola was a good call.
Oh my god, that clip of those two in an interview with CNBC will live in infamy, bro. It's like my god,
Nicola was a good call, Mary. Good
that was
job.
the peak. That was the peak. For those that are on headphones, GM switching to cylindrical battery cells. GM and LGES have broken off talks about building a fourth US battery factory together after GM decided to switch to 4680 cells in the future. And for those that are not familiar, 4680 cells are the ones that are pioneered and driven by Tesla, probably in conjunction with Panasonic in some respects. But 4680 is the standard that Tesla has really come up with. So
I love how you do
another
the
sign,
show. Like you show an article, you read it for somebody who might not be
yeah,
watching, and then you put it in the chat so people can click on it. That's what I was talking about. Your customer experience is second to none. I'm gonna copy some of this stuff. It's
please, thank you.
it's the biggest form of flattery when I was like,
Of course.
Yeah,
My God,
definitely.
yeah, take it all. I mean, if you find something that I'm doing that's useful, I mean, my God, I if anything, I'll be more than if somebody uses my stuff, it confirms that I'm doing the right thing, right? It's like
Yeah,
a
man.
feedback mechanism. It's not like ego getting in the way. Oh my God, why did you? No, I don't like good. That tells me that it's good. Fantastic. I'll figure something out in the future to try to even get better. And if folks copy
I mean,
that,
this is
fantastic.
YouTube. The,
Yeah.
it's a wild, wild west
Yeah.
of people copying off each other.
Yeah, of creativity. Yeah, man, I'm actually a little bit concerned about the economy this year because of some of the stuff that's happening in the auto market too. Like, what? How are you
Um,
thinking about the economy this year, dude? Because I know you've thrown out some red flags on your channel, but
yeah, um, we have a big problem right now. I think with what's the Fed is in this very weird intersection where they have to make some pivotal decisions. And I know it's may sound like trivial. Okay, so they're just gonna raise by 0.25 everything, they can't keep on kicking down the road, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not that simple. There's definitely something to be said mm, about the origins of this. So there's two camps right now in America who are basically debating whether the Fed should raise more interest rates or not. There's people who are saying, well, this is not a monetary inflicted wound. This is a supply chain issue that was caused because of the pandemic, and interest rates are doing nothing to it. So we're basically killing the economy for no reason. Inflation is going to go away. This is the distant relative of inflation is transitory, by the way, if you remember that.
yeah, I do.
Um, I find this argument a little bit peculiar, even though it's been presented by some smart people, because the one thing that I can tell you to refute this a little bit is at the end of the day, we will never find out because we have thrown so much money at the system for the past 3 years. It's a theoretical discussion. We have printed so much money. We have stimulated so much that it's impossible for us now to say, well, it has nothing to do with monetary policies, et cetera, et cetera. We the end of the day, look, I'm a scholar of a guy by the name of Milton Friedman. So Milton
Mm.
Friedman is the OG. Milton Friedman, you may disagree with me, agree with him, but he said that inflation is always 100% out of 100% is always a, a, a monetary phenomena, and it's always the result of more money printing or less money printing. And I'll tell you why. Think about it this way, right? Um, there's definitely something to be said about supply, right? If tomorrow Tesla cuts production by half, cars will be more expensive for sure. There's just not enough cars to be sold to meet the current existing demand. That's fine. And I'm sure this played a part in why we've seen inflation go up during the pandemic for sure. But here's the flip side of it. Imagine the situation, and I'm going to use a very simple example. Imagine the situation where it's a kind of a feudal society, right? And we have the lord of the manor, and he has gold, and then everybody gets paid in gold. And this this lord um, asks for some carpenter to come to his castle and build something. I don't know. And then the carpenter builds it, and the guy says, "Well, look, I can't find the keys to my safe with all my gold. I can't pay right now. So can I write you a note, and I'm going to sign it with my special seal so everybody knows I'm good for it, and you can use it as if it's just gold." And the carpenter obviously says, "Well, you're good for it, no problem at all." And the next day, some other guys come in to do some other work and still can't find the key. The same story happens, etc., etc. Until to the point about 3 weeks into it, he just stops looking for the key at all. He's like, why would I need the key anyways? This is just as good. So he keeps handing out paper and paper. And because it's not actual gold, he just gives out a shit ton of these papers. What happens is that within a year, the entire town is swimming in these papers. The carpenter is now driving a fucking Lambo. The pool guys, they're driving a Bugatti. Everybody's
Hell yeah.
living in a castle. Like there's so
Rolling.
much, right? So so this is a like a monetary abundance, like the flooding of a society with money has a much more how should I put it? Much
Reverse.
more adverse effect towards inflation than supply chain squeezes. Because when look, if we are all competing on the same amount of goods, and now we have double the money that we had a year ago, it just the impact on pricing is going to be way more violent than if there's just not enough produce in the market. The problem is, and this is what the Fed is trying to avoid, like in our extreme example, what I didn't tell you is how the story can end. So at some point, all the villagers, they realize what's going on. They all hold worthless pieces of paper, and they all start looking at each other saying, wait, hold on a second, does this guy have enough gold to pay all of us? And they realize there's no way in hell this is possible physically. So
Hmm.
basically, they all try to run for the castle and get to the safe as fast as they can to get their gold. And they basically banging on the doors, trying to bring down the castle, and the guy is locked inside. Basically, it's a bank run. It's a bank run. It's
Yep.
hyperinflation, whatever you want to call it. I'm just using like these stupid examples to show it. I think that in now going back to the serious answer, I think that the Fed has already done two, like it's already in a two strike situation. The Fed has responsibility for flooding the market with money. The
Which
Fed
they
has
did.
which they did. The Fed has responsibility by playing the politics game, telling us everything is fine for a whole year when everybody knew the things were not fine. It wasn't transitory. So two strikes already have gone by. They have no choice but to be aggressive this time, because if they won't, they lose credibility forever. The whole idea of the Fed is that people need to trust the Fed. If the Fed loses credibility altogether, we're all pretty much screwed. So they will keep pushing on with interest rates. They will keep pushing on. Even they might even overdo it because by the nature of the Fed, it's reactionary, and that's okay. Um, the problem, look, interest rates will get higher in 2023. Recession will come. I don't know how severe it's going to be. Nobody knows. And when the recession comes, it will kill inflation. It's like antibiotics. Recession kills demand. It kills the whole underlying reason for inflation, and then we will start rebuilding. The same thing happened in the 80s when Reagan came in after Jimmy Carter, and then Paul Volcker pushed the US into a deep recession. We came out of it. The Reagan years were terrific. The problem is, that's my biggest fear, that unlike the setup that we had in the late 70s, early 80s, we have a big giant pink elephant in the room which we didn't have back then. We have been spending way more than we have been generating as a society for the good part of 22 years, 20 to 21 years. So you know how people mention this thing, the national debt.
Yep.
So the national debt is not that complex. It's basically this thing that it's just the gap between how much we generate from taxes and how much expect to get from our government, right? In America, people, for the most part, I know there's a lot of poverty in America. I know there's a lot of problems. I know there's a lot of issues, but for the most part, on the macro level, America provides its citizens, most of its citizens, a very high standard of life, definitely compared to other countries. Now, that standard of life comes with a price: roads, infrastructure, healthcare, etc. I know there's a lot of issues with healthcare and education. I understand, but like all these public services, the military, all of this thing, they cost a shit ton of money. And in fact, I can give you a number. It cost last year about $6 trillion. Everything we spent.
Yep.
The problem is that we generated about 4 trillion from taxes. And so that creates this gap. The gap is $2 trillion, which we don't have. So basically, what we need to do is print money. Now, people think we're actually printing like physical money. That's not how it works. The printing of money is basically issuing bonds and basically taking out loans. The problem is that every time the US does that, they go to the piggy bank and they do it. And it gets more expensive as interest rates go up. So we already right now in a situation where we have built such a huge debt, $31 trillion, which is absolutely insane. You can see on the screen 31.5 already. That's our GDP is about 23 trillion. So it's already higher than what we make, the stuff we make in a year.
Yeah.
So now that debt carries an interest payment. Like there's a coupon that gets paid every year. Um, Now whatever we took out in the past on low interest environments, that gets zero impact by current interest rate policies. So a lot of people get this wrong, and I saw a lot of videos by idiots on YouTube who saying like, "Oh, the interests have doubled since last year, so now we're gonna pay double interest." This is absolutely false. If you hear this, unsubscribe. So basically, right now the U.S. is paying about a lot, bro. $500 billion of interest per
Yeah.
year. It's a
More
lot.
than more than defense, I think they paid
More,
last year.
it's I
Yeah.
think it's the biggest item in the budget already.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
single budget. So out of $4 trillion
Crazy.
of income, uh, half a trillion goes out of this four. Half a
Over
trillion goes.
10%.
Yeah. So no, I think it's more. I think it's like 20. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
10 to
here's
15%, something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So by the way, there's numbers that project how much it's gonna be. So in 10 years, we're gonna hit 1.2 trillion from. So the problem is that uh, we spend more and more, and now the GDP increases as well, which means our tax income increases every year. But the rate at which we're spending more is outpacing the GDP growth. So we keep borrowing more, borrowing more, borrowing more. The problem that starts is when the Fed has no choice but to raise interest to deal with inflation. That makes our debt repayment much more expensive going forward. So this year, when we borrow money, now it's way more expensive than last year. So now our debt service, it becomes more expensive, and it grows at a faster pace than what was before. And this creates a huge problem because now a lot of people say, "Oh, it's going to drive hyperinflation." No, it's going to collapse the U.S. economy. No, 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 no. But here's what happens: the more you do it, and the more your debt becomes more expensive, the service of debt becomes more expensive. Now imagine you have a budget, and in the budget now, instead of half a trillion, you're paying 0.75 trillion on interest rate. Now this money will have to come out from somewhere. It comes out of defense, infrastructure, education, Medicare, Medicaid, I don't know, social security, etc., etc. When you tap basically into these items and you take money out of them just to repay your debt, your GDP is not going to grow as fast because you're not putting money back into the system to
Uh,
grow more GDP. And then your GDP grows slower, your tax income doesn't basically gets lower and lower, and then you have to borrow more money, and then it creates this crazy snowball effect. Now the crazy part about it, I know I went on a little bit of a tangent here, but
no, please, you're good.
I'll give you
Yeah.
one more crazy part. There's an easy fix to this, and every politician knows the easy fix. The fix is super easy. All you got to do is increase tax collections. And by the way, that doesn't necessarily mean increase tax rates, it means increased collections. Many multinational US domiciled companies are avoiding actively taxing the US in Ireland, Hong Kong, Singapore, offshore, and the US tax authorities are aware of this, and they don't enforce it because these guys have become so big, and so the lobbyists are basically
Lobbyists.
allowing
Yeah.
this to happen. So, and the biggest item in the tax collection in the US is corporate tax. And the biggest avoidance legally is happening in corporate tax. So offshore, international, multinational taxation has to, like, that's the way to collect more money, not increase rates. When you increase rates, you don't collect more money. There's
Yeah.
the Laffer
Just
curve
get the
shows.
money that's already out there that you're owed.
Exactly. The money is
Yeah.
going to Ireland
Yeah.
and fucking Singapore. Like, these are US companies selling in the US. The other part is the government has to spend less. So these two things have to happen in tandem. The problem is, where do you spend less? 90% of our budget is like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security,
Yeah.
defense. It's like if you touch any of these items, it's political suicide.
Yeah.
Or if you go against the big corporations and you say, "Oh, we're going to collect more taxes from you guys," and it's political suicide because they're so powerful. So every politician understands the solution, but they're too chicken shit to do it, and they're all saying, "Well, it's the next man's problem. This is going to be a problem in 20 years. Let somebody else worry about it." And then in 20 years, when it blows up in our face, it's going to be too late to address it.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, so thank you so much for walking us. I mean, that was an incredibly digestible, super helpful thing you just went through, and helps me conceptualize it much better in my head.
Half of your
as
audience
well.
is asleep. It's like,
We just peaked viewership. So thank you. If anything, it did the opposite. By the way, shout out almost 1,400 viewers right now. Thank you all
oh,
very much for
nice.
joining us today. Yeah. The Or what if is the third option to figure out how to grow the economy so much so that the
Yeah,
overall tax collection, right? So I mean,
yeah,
I guess that's a third, that probably a very
good catch.
you know what I'm
Yes.
saying? So,
Yes, I know
but
exactly what you're saying, and this is like
yeah,
that just proves to me how smart you are, because this is literally what Reagan did in the 80s. So in the 80s, like the way to like reduce government spending, increase tax collections, and outgrow the
yeah,
debt, because when you outgrow the debt, GDP goes up, tax collection goes up. So this is literally what they did in the 80s. In the 80s, they basically said, you know what, we have to basically unleash the economy. So they deregulated everything, basically let it absolutely go berserk. It's like free market, go crazy. And that's
yeah,
that's why you saw this the Reagan times. There like there was a lot of that happening. So
yeah,
deregulation, incentives for businesses, make it easy for people to be entrepreneurs, less like bro, like it's not even just about like EPA and stuff, because I know it's important. It goes way more deeper into this, like signage regulation and this regulation and that regulation and this regulation. You can't do that. You can't do fines. They killing businesses with this bureaucratic nonsense, and
yeah.
that's just like so. Yes, definitely, what you said is the third part,
A
100%.
third one. It's going to be
Yes.
difficult to do, though, right? Because you're going to need to increase the economy by 50%
No, but
to
you don't
like
have to.
basically
You don't
match.
have to
Yeah,
solve the problem in a day. Um,
it's going to take time. Yeah.
n-
But that's why things like, I guess, AI, like the AI revolution, you have stuff like
all you
manufacturing
got to
coming
do,
back to the
look, all
United
you got to do,
States, right?
Farzad, all you have to do is just create a situation where you're not at 6 to 4 expenditure versus income.
Right,
Just
right, right.
flatten it. Like in
Yeah,
2001 is the last year when it was flat. If you just flatten it and just manage, like big debt is manageable. But the problem is like not the size of the debt,
right,
is the fact that we keep growing it as if it's some sort of an endless pit to which we can tap in. Like people don't understand. They interpret very binary this the issue. Some people are screaming, "Oh my God, Armageddon tomorrow." That's false. And some saying, "Oh, this is nonsense. Government economics is nothing like running a business. We can go to endless debt." Also
right,
false. That doesn't work like that. It's like there's a very delicate machine, and if you keep basically fucking with it, eventually it's going to break. And because everybody knows it's going to break in 20 years, nobody today gives a fuck, and that's a big problem.
right. I remember when we moved to the States back in '99, there was a big word that one of my first words that I learned in English was surplus. It was because, like the Clinton administration was talking about surplus, right? So I guess
Yep.
back in '99, 2000s, I don't know if it was because of the administration or whatever. I
I
just
think
remember that
Clinton was
word
the last president that had
that had a surplus, right?
more income than expenditures on the
And
budget.
that's what a surplus is, right? So it would be like the
Yeah.
opposite. It would be like 6 billion in revenue and four
Yeah.
billion in expenditure. So
But
we are
Clinton is
making
not
money.
the he's not a good guy. And I always say
Yeah, I'm not even
the
talking about
the
the
debt
politics.
the
Yeah,
debt problem is not a
yeah,
partisan thing.
yeah,
It's actually pretty funny. So the Republicans and Democrats have equally contributed to this problem, and it's really amusing when Democrats are in power. Republicans are outrageous about the debt.
yeah.
When the
And then it
Republicans in
flips.
power, then
Yeah,
the Democrats and they
it's
keep flipping it.
hilarious.
It's
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
So it's not like Clinton was the good guy. They're all
Right.
culprits. Both sides, they're all
Yeah.
equally culprit in this.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, I couldn't agree more. But it was just it's just fascinating how quickly things change. Where you go from a time where
Yeah.
you're generating a surplus and you're eating into the national debt theoretically if you're paying down the debt
Well, you know
versus
what happened in the past 20 years. So Clinton is responsible for shipping out a lot of
NAFTA.
the manufacturing capacity of the US. And what happens is like, okay, so you ship out all the jobs. Bottom line looks great. Margins are better. It's cheaper, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
But you ain't making shit.
you reduce
You ain't
GDP.
making shit. The people don't have jobs. The economy is not like it becomes a services economy. It's very hard to grow a services economy.
Well, that's
So
why I'm like hopeful with like the part of the IRA bill that I thought was good was that it's forcing manufacturing to come back on shore for say electric vehicles and battery manufacturing and stuff. I think that's a positive step. What do you think about that? I mean,
I
some of
think
the
it's ironic when the first time in 22 years where you have a US domicile company dominating, growing like crazy, 50% per year,
they get
actually
shit on.
kicking ass, and the government is taking a dump on its head.
How crazy is that?
I've never seen anything like this.
It's so,
It's
and like
it's
that
insane.
to me proves it's all politics, bro. Like that's, I thank you for saying that because I talk to my wife about this all the time. I'm like, and when I say this
God has given you a
publicly,
gift. God has given like here's a
exactly.
second chance. Your auto industry was destroyed by the
You
Japanese, the
should be
Koreans, the
flying a
Germans.
flag of Elon on the
Oh my
White
God,
House.
God,
You know what I'm
you are
saying?
falling ass backwards into this perfect situation, and you're self-destructing.
Yeah. It's crazy. And it's like I'm trying to be so impartial with it. Like, it gets so easy to be called an Elon, freaking cultist member or whatever. But like the way you just described it is exactly how I'm thinking about it. Is like you finally have somebody, and not just an American company, but an immigrant that came
Yeah,
to your country and built this behemoth that's going to dominate the auto market, and it's onshoring battery manufacturing, technology manufacturing, chip manufacturing. It's
yep.
talent harvesting from the world into the United States. And what does the government do? They turn a blind eye. If it and worse, they attack him. What is this? It's so crazy to me. And so thank you for bringing that up because you just triggered me.
Because it's all about politics. The
It's
unions
crazy.
play a huge part in U.S.
Yeah.
politics, and
Yeah. It's
politicians
infuriating.
are short-sighted. They're all about
Yeah.
like their only job is to get reelected. Unions are a
Yeah.
huge part of that. Tesla, as you know, is ununionized, and
Yeah.
then it becomes a very political game. It's very sad to me to see this.
Yeah.
Like
So they're not
he's
in it
up
for
there
the
on the
country. They're
stage,
in, yeah.
like he doesn't even know his name. I'm sure at this point, it's like he's reading off a text. It's like Mary Barra, like
Yeah.
Mary Barra is like she's cringing out because she knows it's false. She's like, oh, she knows it's horseshit. And like they're all
Yeah.
clapping. There's
Yeah.
the lyric is on stage, which they made like 5 pieces of that year. It's like
Yeah.
it's a
It's
fucking
just
it's a fucking prototype. It's like what is going on? Is this insane
it's just such a
world?
transparent it's such a transparent form of like dishonest rhetoric, right? Because it's, and that's like half hoping that there is a movement, like I'm feeling something that's more grassroots as of late, especially because of the internet, and some of these communities are coming up around companies like Tesla and other sort of really innovative companies, and people that are just agnostic about politics. They're just
Yep.
invested in doing the right thing that makes sense for the public, for the world. Like, hey, let's and in this at the same time build a very strong economy. Like, why is this such a controversial thing? Like, why isn't this just like how everybody talks about it? And so the only reason why they don't, it's because it's a self-serving crusade. It's not about making the country better or onshoring jobs or making sure that we support
Of
American
course.
companies. It's about how can I gain more power as a politician, which to me is like the craziest thing ever, because these guys are supposed to be public servants, and instead they're just hogging up the attention and trying to be in office for their entire life. We pay them, they get a pension, and all they do is half their time to spend in re-election to try and get reelected, and the other half they're doing things that are self-serving. Great, this seems like a sustainable system. It's insane.
That's the that's not a US problem,
It's a
but
politics problem, right?
like I would like to hope that in the checks and balances systems that was created in the US, that is far superior than most other countries,
I
this
agree.
would be
I agree
some
with that.
more mitigated. But I was so disappointed like I'm I don't think that I've been more embarrassed than like ever by seeing Joe Biden call out like GM for being the leaders of the EV industry. It's like I it's almost like politicians they think that if you say something it becomes true. And there's
Yeah.
no other explanation. It's like, look, at the end of the day it doesn't matter. um y- Look, Tesla is being ran by a guy who survived, like who took retirement money. He put it into a rocket company and an EV company. He survived multiple very close calls with bankruptcies. uh, he is battle tested. He knows how to ramp up. He's already at 2 million, going very, very strong. Even the US government can't stop Tesla at this point. So luckily, luckily for the US government, they have zero impact, besides annoying a few people like you and myself. But I mean,
Sure.
they cannot do nothing about it. The EV tax credit, like they tried to screw with Tesla. Tesla came back through the main door. Even if they don't give the like you can slow down. Like, look, if there's a basketball game where the referee is been bought off, right? So, which is what's going on right now with U.S. politics. But one team is up by 30 points. That referee is not going to win you the game if you're so much worse than the other team. So that's
True.
my point. So I'm not really concerned. I'm just saying it could have been a lot smoother if the government would actually figure out what it has, the prize that they hold on to. But it's going to happen with or without the support of politicians.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's it feels like that, and until until a player comes through. I mean, the only one that I legitimately think will be any sort of player in that arena is BYD, and
Definitely.
they're not going to steal share away from Tesla. They're going to steal share away from everybody else.
No,
Some of which
BYD,
are American companies.
it's it's the car I see the most in like eh, um, uh, as the potential competitor to Tesla. And I'm not the one saying, I've been saying it for ages, but I mean, smarter people than me have said it. I mean, Warren Buffett obviously saw it on time, although he's been trimming a little bit. But I mean, they're look, they don't play the politics game in China. They're very quiet. They're very they don't make flashy cars. They make very simple, very basic cars. They have all the technology in house. They don't need anything from anybody. They know how to build cars at scale. They have battery technology. They've invested uh, in EV infrastructure on time. So their setup is beautiful to match Tesla, and Elon knows it. The problem is that they're subject to the whims and the arbitrary decisions of the Chinese bureaucrats and government. So if Tesla gets into trouble in China, they lose a factory. That sucks. But that's just another Tuesday. Like in 3 years, we're talking about what, another 3 or 4 factories. This in three
Yeah,
four years.
yeah,
Okay, whatever, right? So they if BYD gets in trouble with the Chinese government, it's game over. And it's very
true.
easy to get on the bad side of the CCP because they're not thinking economically. They're thinking in terms of keeping control and basically dominance and keeping the lid on this powder keg that is the Chinese economy, which has a lot of problems. We talk about it later.
Yeah,
Um, China is headed into a very tough decade, very tough decade. They're gonna have to put out a lot of fires. So I, I like BYD, but that geography is gonna get much. It's gonna get worse fast than people think. Like there's this total misunderstanding. Like I think people like Ray Dalio who write books about it, they contribute to this misunderstanding of where China is at. Like there's this misconception that China is the next big empire. China is in a world of trouble. It has nothing to do with the U.S. They basically destroyed their demographic situation single-handedly by themselves. They've destroyed their future. They're an aging population with no solution in sight. Um, Already, 35% of Chinese are outside the working age already today. Um, they're just a huge demographic problem. Aging population being supported by dwindling young population. There's no positive immigration into China, unlike the U.S., for example, with immigration. On top of the problems that they already had for years, which is questionable GDP numbers, and even if you believe them, they're based on the Ponzi scheme that is the real estate market in China. Like a third of Chinese GDP is the real estate market in China, and that you have to understand, like if you dive deep into the property market in China, which is responsible for a third of the GDP, it's all a huge Ponzi scheme. And I'm not just saying this; it's literally what it is. People are buying apartments which they don't ever intend to live in. These apartments never gets finished. They're built up as skeletons. The only thing you can do with this apartment is to resell it at a higher price to the next guy in the hopes of selling it to the next guy. The greater fool theory. And like this, if you can research this place, like like massive ghost cities in China of these apartments, roads leading to nowhere, etc., etc. At some point, and we've seen the start of this with Evergrande. It's starting to come apart at the seams like a cheap cushion. So China has to deal with whatever they have concocted with this real estate bubble and an aging population and angry neighbors and horrible geography, um, and potentially multiple like issues with the US sanctions, etc., etc., etc. That's why I like when Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan and people are like, oh, they're gonna attack Taiwan. They ain't gonna do jack shit. They have their houses on fire, bro. They're not gonna go beat up the neighbor right now. They have a
Yeah.
serious domestic issue. Like
Yeah.
Taiwan is not
Yeah,
a
it's a
problem.
huge, huge, huge thing to go after. If you want to
And
zoom
look
in a
at
little bit
look at
into
the
the
models. Look at the models for the future of China because they're trying to encourage people to have kids, but
hmm
it's so economically ineffective in China to have more kids. Basically, people not just culturally, but also like they think of it cost effectively. It's like why? So the models going forward, China in 30 years is going to be like 60-70% out of the working age. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah. So we have a chart up right now, and I know we have to wrap it up here in a few minutes. I have one more quick question to ask you before we do that, but let me just show this chart what you're talking about. So this is population distribution in China in 2021 by 5-year age group. And
Yep.
what you're seeing is each bar, so at the top starts with 95 people in order. Older, it's about 0.06%. If you go down to like 65 to 69 years old, it's
Yep.
5.44%, right? And so what's happening now is you have this sort of middle section that is the majority of the population, but what you want to see in a healthy population is you want most of your population to be young, so that as you want more young people than old people, because what happens in the future is those young people become old people.
Yep.
And so what's going to end up happening is now if you just shift this graph up by say, I don't know, 20 years, all of a sudden there's not enough young people being born to replace the older
Yep.
people. So now you have a society where you have mostly old people, which are not of working age, and they have to be supported by the government by
Yep.
less people than were there before. And so this is just kind of what
Japan
happens.
has a very similar issue.
Yeah,
Uh,
very similar.
a very similar issue, but look, Japan is in a whole different ball game, geopolitically, economically, etc., etc., etc. US has a similar issue, not to this extent, but the US has such a, um, it has a cheat code. It's like whenever you open the gate and you say, "Come in, new young people," like from everywhere. It doesn't have to be like globally. Like there's literally a lottery. Did you know this? There's a green card lottery in the US, and
Oh yeah,
people like there's
yeah, yeah.
like 10 to 1, 20 to 1 people who are
One
like,
of my employees in
yeah,
Tesla was part of that lottery. Yeah,
yeah. There's a lottery system. It's
yeah,
like there's no problem. You want more doctors a certain year, more
yeah,
lawyers, more construction workers. You can choose. People just really want to come to the US and work. And that's why, like, I feel as because of my foreign background, when like Native Americans are saying, "Oh, the U.S. is horrible," the U.S. like it's blah blah. Guys, you don't know how bad it is out there. I mean, you haven't seen like true um,
Native
mm,
Americans meaning people that were born here, or like
Native
actual
Americans, not Native Americans in the sense that like the diction. I mean, native like
like
U.S.
born
born
born and
people.
raised.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So U.S. born people, like they
Just
very
wanted to make sure I
critical.
clear that up
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
before you get yourself into.
But I'm Russian, so I don't necessarily mean like
No, yeah, I know what
I
you mean.
made a video once saying there's chinks in the armor, and I was talking about China, and people are like, "Oh,
Right.
that's racist,"
Oh,
and it took me
geez.
2 weeks to understand what was racist about what I said because I didn't understand I didn't understand the reference. I had to take down the video. I was like, "No, that's not what I meant. I meant
Yeah,
chinks
yeah,
in the
yeah,
armor." And
yeah,
but basically, what I'm saying, like people in the US that were born in the US, they have this very critical way of thinking, and obviously the US has a lot of problems. Alex Jones, poverty,
yeah,
racism, sure, but why don't you go and live in other places and check it out? There's very few other places on earth you can basically chase your dreams, get compensated fairly, and get actual value from the local government, from the federal government, etc., etc. I mean, it's not perfect, but there's very few other places on earth I think I would even consider living in except
yeah.
the U.S.
Same, brother. Yeah, I mean, take it from two guys that don't sound native and
Yeah,
don't look native. Freaking the states is freaking awesome. It's far from perfect, and I
yeah.
think
There's
all
no
of us
sense
as
think there's no
citizens are
perfect
trying.
countries, but
Right.
I mean, look, there's a
I
lot
love
of
this country. I
beautiful
really do.
like I was on vacation in Italy. It was beautiful. I would never want to live there. With all due respect to, I love Italy is amazing, great food, beautiful countryside, great nice people. But I mean, like the problem is like the US has created a system that's very hard to replicate. Is with if you have a talent and you apply yourself, you have a good chance of jumping and leapfrogging your socioeconomic status. It's very hard to do in other countries. I don't know how to explain how insanely impossible it is in most other countries. You can be the smartest guy in your class. You can have you work the hardest, but the barriers, the socioeconomical
Yeah,
barriers in other countries are very tough to
yeah,
leapfrog.
yeah.
And in the US, it's easy. Like not saying that anybody can do it, but I mean, it's more of a fair
Comparatively
game. Yeah, fair
easier,
game. Yeah,
much
it's a
much
fair game.
easier.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the reason why, dude, and honestly, like you've kind of hit the nail on why a company like, if I bring it back around to the thing we are talking about at the beginning, why a company like Tesla is so like near and dear to my heart is because I view them as the best representation of
yeah,
what America is. And
yeah.
that ultimately is why I feel so passionate, not just about America, but about that specific company, because it's literally America encapsulated into a company. And it
Exactly.
feels incredible. And it's such a beautiful thing. Before we
Yeah,
wrap up,
an
Tom, yeah, go
immigrant
ahead. Yeah.
immigrant creates a
Yeah.
company out of thin air, and with all due
Yeah.
respect to Ebenhart and Ebergreen, whatever the fuck their names are, like they had a go-kart electric company project, science project.
Yeah.
And Elon has made them very rich. And
Yeah.
obviously, I'm just kidding. They're the founders. I mean,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Elon has stepped into this company that has had a lot of issues. It was far from a threat for the auto industry. In fact, I'm being very gentle here. And they've created this force of nature out of thin air. I am. It's the if this was a movie, we would get criticized that it's not believable.
Right.
It's too crazy. Like nobody would buy it. It's like, guys, this is not like it's too imaginary. It's too insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Beautiful
that's
way
the
to put
beauty of
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful way to put it. Real quick before we wrap up, Tom. So Wednesday, FOMC gets announced. I
Point
believe
25.
a rate increase. You think that's
Point.
it's 0.25?
Look, it's
No
very
questions
simple.
asked.
I look, if it's above 0.25, brace brace for a shit sandwich in the stock market. If it's 0 and they say, "Oh, we're waiting to see," it's gonna be a bonanza, like
Glorious.
we have absolutely insane. But the chances of either of these scenarios happening, I would say less than 1%. It's gonna
Okay.
be 0.25. Everybody knows it. And it's probably gonna be 0.25 again after that. And if it's gonna be 0.25, it's already priced in. So not expecting a lot of movement. Although, dude, this is a crazy market. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
don't I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's like the educated answer is 0.25 is priced in, but
Yeah.
man, we've seen some crazy shit
Yeah,
this
dude.
year.
I mean, part of my hope, and you tell me if this is unrealistic, and then we'll sign off here. Like the housing market is clearly just completely frozen. Mortgage rates are starting to come down. Used and new car prices are collapsing. And people are laying off workers everywhere. And the Fed said we're going to start trying to be a little bit more forward looking in
Yeah.
some ways. Don't you think this is the perfect setup for, okay, we're going to wait and see what happens in
They're
the next few months?
afraid of letting go too soon. If you pull up, there's a chart that shows inflation in the 70s, 80s, et cetera, et cetera. There's a chart, very famous chart. I'm sure producer wife
Yeah, see if you can
can
find it.
find it. And you can
Nice.
see that inflation has started to come down in the 70s. It started to come down. The Fed went back down to 5% interest from I don't remember like there was a correlation, very similar thing. Inflation started spiking, Fed went crazy, inflation started dropping, dropped to I think 4%, very close, and then the Fed started to ease up, and then it spiked again, and then Paul Volcker had to step in and basically crash the entire economy to fix it. I'm gonna try to find it. Hold on,
Okay.
um, I have it somewhere here, and if I can't, I'll find it for you. Hold on.
Is that
Uh,
it?
mm, yeah, but
I
this
think that's
chart
it.
doesn't
Yeah.
show.
The interest
Um,
rates.
wait, I know where to find it. It's in Michael Burry's tweets, I think.
Shout
Um,
out Michael Berry,
it's
the
in my
forever bear.
yeah.
Him and
I'll
Peter
find
Schiff
it.
are both forever bears.
Well,
Yeah.
Peter Schiff has different reasons than Michael Burry. Michael Burry,
Yeah.
you can say just attention, and he enjoys the pandemonium. Peter Schiff has been on this gold buy gold thing
Yeah.
for
Forever.
years, forever.
Yeah.
So
I
I
actually have his one book he wrote a while ago. It was actually very helpful. I forget what it was. It was kind of explaining the economy and how supply and demand works. I forget the name of the book. It was actually a good read. Peter Schiff, I agree with him 99% of the time, but like I would totally hang out with the guy because he just seems like such a chaos person, and he just seems really fun
well, I
to
can't
hang out
find it
with.
right now, but basically there
No problem.
was in the big inflationary spike in the 70s, we had an easing off period, and the Fed has taken the foot off the pedal because they're saying, okay, inflation is coming down, we can relax, and then it shot up like crazy. So
Mm,
with the two strikes we talked about already earlier, the Fed is really apprehensive about letting that happen because this would be the ultimate nail in the coffin if they
yeah.
do that. So they're like, we're not gonna ease off too soon because we've seen it happen in the 70s and how bad it's going to be. And also, we already have a huge two strikes we're carrying. So we'd rather just see it all the way through. The only way the Fed eases off is when unemployment goes to 4.5% and above, and inflation goes below 3%. Like if inflation below 3%, unemployment above 4%, until then, they're gonna keep pushing. It's just too
Okay.
scary because we've seen it already kind of do the head fake and then go up stronger than it's like a diet, when you get off the diet and then
Yeah.
you eat and then you get more. I've done this,
You
that's why I
balloon.
know. Yeah, I
I've
balloon.
been there too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been there
So
too. Tom, thank
so
you so much, brother. What a discussion. That was one of the fastest hours of my life. Um, I would
thank
love
you.
to have you back again to talk about anything, dude, because I think you're a wealth of knowledge. I think one of my favorite things about your channel, by the way, if you don't follow Tom Nash, just literally search Tom Nash. You'll find him on YouTube.
Somebody did an
Phenomenal
F
YouTuber.
bomb counter, one of your community members.
Oh, he did. What are you at? Probably like 4 or 5, right? Oh, the last time you came on, they did an F bomb counter too. I
He
remember that.
says 9.
9? Okay. I think that was better than your 40
You
last
had
time.
one. You had one though.
I had one.
You had one.
But I think you do really good financial content. What I really appreciate about your insight is sort of geopolitical sort of world knowledge and
Every time I
politics
speak
and
to people, they tell me this,
yeah,
but every time I make a video about these topics, nobody watches them. It's
you have to do
crazy.
them. You have to do them. You know how the
Everybody
algorithm
tells me,
works.
"Oh, we love this content, we love this," but the numbers, we are driven
Yeah.
by numbers, right? Because like at the end of the day, the, the audience they drive the bus, right? So
Right.
we
Right.
give them the content that they want to see more of. It's like whenever I do this stuff, it's like it has very low numbers. So it's like almost my like I guess I should do a separate channel for that.
Yeah. I
Just for
would.
like the OGs. That's what I'll do.
I would. I would. Yeah, because and then that how the algorithm works and
Peter
the
Zahan, I'm
we'll
coming for
find
you, motherfucker. I'm
yeah.
just kidding.
I
Tom
would
Nash
much
and
rather watch you than
Geopolitics.
Peter. I would much
I
rather watch you
love
than
him. I
Peter.
love him. He's brilliant. He's brilliant.
He's a very smart guy, but he tends to like really
Bro,
I don't know. He has
he
some
does
pretty bad takes.
look, he has a bad take on Tesla and on EVs. But that's just because for a normal person, it's very hard to comprehend how somebody can achieve the impossible. Because like Tesla is a story of impossibilities being reality. And if you've been following the Tesla story from day one, it's very hard to bet against Elon being able to find a solution. Like imagine like in pandemic times, nobody could get parts. Tesla never had a parts issue. Like this, Peter Zehan is looking at this as a realist, is saying, well, look, there's a lot of challenges in ramping up this EV industry and this and that and that and that. But he's not. He hasn't like looked at it.
The due
The light
diligence.
bulb hasn't really like dinged in his head, basically saying, "Well, Tesla is different." He's looking for like resource management issues, like raw
Yeah.
materials, supply. I
Mega
get it.
trend
Yeah, I
stuff.
get
Yeah.
it. What he's talking about, but I mean, he's not an EV expert in that
That's fair.
sense. And I think like most institutional investors, that's why they haven't gotten on board with Tesla. I don't think it's buybacks or the key man risk at Tesla, which are both things that needs to be addressed for more institutionals to jump on board. Maybe part two for our interview. I think
Yeah.
for institutional investors, the main part is the fact that they haven't bought into the story. They're not fully on board with this because, like they're saying, oh, they still not. Uh,
They're not sold on the fact that they can do what they're saying they're going to do.
it's very hard for somebody who's like a cowboy, right, to come in and say, well, pay 20 times more than GM for this company. It's like, why should I pay 20 times? It's that thing is just, it's a very tough barrier for them to cross. I think that the crossing of the Rubicon in that sense will happen when Tesla Energy, because this is a sleeping giant, and we can see the embers kind of starting to
Yeah.
like people don't pay attention. The energy business is slowly starting to unravel, and when that happens, when the AI stuff come out more, when the semi, the cybertruck, so it will happen, but they're gonna overpay because of their hesitance,
Right.
and that's okay. They usually do. They're not
It's
in
good
the
for
business.
retail that's early, basically.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I tell the story all the time. One of my relatives is an early Tesla investor. I'm talking like IPO level stuff, like super, super early.
Oh,
And um, he hasn't sold a single share as of at least a couple of weeks ago that I spoke with. And he has no intention of.
oh,
And
well.
he's not a wealthy guy, cash wealthy guy. Like he just bought a house and he took out a mortgage. Like he's not
Okay.
like the amount he
Yeah.
has in Tesla,
He's
he can.
sensible. He's a
He's
sensible
just.
gentleman.
I think it's not so much about sensibility, but basically he's saying, well, this is not even this ain't
Not
it
even
yet. Not
close.
even
Yeah,
close. Yeah.
got it. Got it. Got it.
So
Okay. Makes
you
sense.
you
Makes
may
sense. Yeah, that
think like him or not, it doesn't matter. But I mean,
yeah.
institutional investors, they don't analyze like this investments. They can't. They physically, like people like why Gary Black says this about Tesla. I spoke to Warren and he was like very critical because look, Gary Black is right and Warren is right, and they're both right. The problem is like you can't expect um, professional investors to mm, to take this sort of approach of uh, a 20-year plan, leap of faith on the crazy dream, and that they're not in that business. They look at they look at the balance sheet. They look at units. Okay, this is a 2 million car, 1.3 million car company. Oh, Toyota is a 10 million car company. How come it's trading like so much more? No, not for us. Thank you. That's it. And
Yeah.
it's okay. They're not in that business. But like, hey,
Mm.
guess what? There has never been a company in the history of the stock market with th- under with over 60% retail that has been so stable. Like when you have retail participation that is so high, it's usually a canary in the coal mine that there's
Right.
problems ahead. Not for Tesla. It's more volatile than more solid stocks that have like 65% institutional investors. But for the most part, every time it dips, it bounces back up. It bends. It's like the 70s Pittsburgh Steelers. It bends,
Yeah.
but
Bend,
it
don't
never
break.
breaks. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a 4-3 with the cover two. You just play that every single play, and you just you
Spoken
end up
like a
winning.
true Penn State fan who's used to
Hell yeah.
losing. Who used to
Hey,
losing.
watch yourself. Okay. You should have
No,
beat TCU, FYI.
bro.
Should
I
have won that
can I
game.
can tell you this is a very painful topic. Um, it was not like the score lies. This was a game in which TCU dominated Michigan. Like I don't know if you watched the game, if
I
you had a
did.
chance to
Yeah,
catch the game,
I did.
you know what I'm talking about.
They
It
wanted it
wasn't.
more
It wasn't close. Michigan almost pulled it off at the end somehow, ass backwards.
because they're
But like,
bigger and
but
faster.
TCU out coached, outplayed, out schemed, out hustled every single.
Yeah.
Like we're getting sidetracked here. Anyway, it's a
Yeah,
painful
no,
topic.
I
It
yeah,
was
I
so
sorry.
painful.
Only because you brought up Penn State, bro. Sorry, I didn't mean to like push the
At
dagger
least
in
we
your heart.
were in the playoffs.
Hey, okay. Good night, everybody. We're
I'm
leaving
also a
now.
huge. You can ask Dan Ives, who's also a huge Penn State
Penn
fan.
Stater, yeah,
I told him months ago when everybody was hating on Cliff. I told him Cliff is the dude. Just watch it.
yeah.
And he can confirm what I said. I said
And then the
when
Rose Bowl.
and everybody was hating on Cliff. Blah, blah. I said, what this guy's gonna be? Because I saw him against Michigan. I was like, this guy is really good. And he I know how to spot good quarterbacks. I was like, this guy's gonna be amazing. He
Yeah,
panned out.
yeah. No, I think it's yeah. Hopefully, he makes it to the next level. That Rose Bowl game was incredible by him, and I couldn't be happier for him to end
The
his career
second
that
half of the
way.
season for him was a
But
pro
phenomenal.
showcase. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good. So,
You should
but then next year we got the 5-star QB starting, so I'm excited for that too. So, anyway, we'll see what happens.
not as
Tom, thank you
excited
so
as
much, brother.
as you for that, but okay.
Okay, Tom, thanks again, brother. I'm sure we'll talk again many times. Thank you so much. Seriously, it's always a
Been a
pleasure
pleasure.
talking with you. Just a
Subscribe to my
wealth of
channel,
knowledge.
PewDiePie on YouTube.
Tom Nash. Yeah. Look him up,
you,
Tom
bye.
Nash. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you around.
Later.
Bye bye. And